afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Circuit Zandvoort. We've got our second race coming up for you in the Prototype Cup Germany. This is based on the qualifying times that took place earlier on today. So the cars making their way out onto circuit, onto what is a beautifully dry track today, having been rather wet over the course of yesterday. And we will see this second 55-minute race, plus an additional lap thereafter. It includes, of course, a mandatory pit stop where all of the cars have to come into the pit lane and stop for the absolute minimum amount of time based on the supplementary regulations that are issued for this weekend, but also factoring in, if it's a single driver and he's a bronze driver, that's the scratch time. He will be on minimum time. If it's a single driver and they're a silver category driver, such as the FIA rankings, add 25 to that. And for those that share the car, if it's a bronze sharing with a silver, you add an extra 10. If it's two silvers racing together, you add an extra 20. If it's a gold racing with a bronze, you add an extra 10. And then you also need to factor in where they finished in the race earlier on over the course of this weekend. So Antti Ramo, who claimed the win yesterday, his first of the season, he's got an extra 7 seconds as a result of the win yesterday. Torsten Kratz, who shares with Danny Sufi the championship leading car, they've got an extra 4 seconds to spend in the pit lane. And Marcus Pommer, when he gives way to Valentino Catalano, will have an extra 2 seconds as a result of finishing third in yesterday's race. So there's plenty to factor in, and it will all unravel over the course of 55 minutes plus that extra lap that are coming up. The race win yesterday, as we say, went to MRS GT Racing's Ligier in the hands of Antti Ramo, the number 14 car. That will start 6th on the grid for this one. Danny Sufi and Torsten Kratz, their Ligier finished in 2nd place for Conrad Motorsport, the number 2 car. They will start 5th on the grid for this one. And Marcus Palmer and Valentino Catalano, who finished 3rd yesterday, will start 2nd on the grid for this one. So there is Keanu Alazari, the pole sitter for Mullner Motorsport, the Duquesne. And depending on the type of race that it is, pole either sits on the right-hand side of the circuit, as it does on this occasion, the left as we look at it on our television screens, or it sits on the opposite side. So as it's a rolling start, the pole position has the inside line for Tarzan. If it was, say, a 2x2 staggered start like you'd have for single-seater racing, then pole position would be on the left-hand side of the circuit, and that car would have the outside line heading up towards Tarzan. So it's Mullner Motorsport on pole. Gibbert Motorsport, the first of 3 cars they've got in the entry list for this weekend, 2nd. BWT Mucker Motorsport. Stefan Mucker is here this weekend. Bumped into him earlier on today. He is the man behind Mucker Motorsport, who engineers the Duquesne of Ricardo Liano Cirelli and Julien Potelot. But it will be Cirelli that will be starting the car. The drivers that qualified this morning start the car, and those that qualified yesterday started the car. A separate driver has to do each one of the 2 qualifying sessions, and whoever starts the car one day, the other person will qualify the car and start it the second day. There's yesterday's race winner, Antti Ramo, MRS GT Racing, the Ligier. It was a Ligier 1-2 yesterday, followed by Duquesne's 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. The sole Ginetta that we've got in the field, the extra car that's been added by Momo Gibbert that makes its racing debut in the championship. Finished in 7th place. There was another Ligier in 8th place. And unfortunately, yesterday there was retirement. There is the Ginetta. Just briefly saw the shot of the fantastic traditional Momo livery. But Thomas Granzea and Laurent Prunet retired in yesterday's race and brought about a safety car just as the pit window opened, so that bunched everybody up. They can't pit under the safety car, and they all then dived to the pit lane at the same time. So the grid is set. Let's guide you through it. So Keanu Alazari sits there on pole position for Mullner Motorsport. He's the only driver to dip into the 1-minute 31s in qualifying, and Marcus Pommer lines up in the first of 3 Gibbert Motorsport cars on the outside of the front row of the grid. The BWT Mucker Motorsport car of Ricardo Leone Cirelli sits there 3rd on the grid, and he's got Jakob Erlbacher, the 2nd of the Gibbert Motorsport cars, sitting alongside. Row 3 of the grid, it's the car that leads the championship. Torsten Kratz starts for Conrad Motorsport. They also lead the team's championship coming into this one. And Antti Ramo, yesterday's race winner for the first time for MRS GT Racing, sits on the outside of that 3rd row of the grid. And it's Mikael Erich that lines there for Gibbert Motorsport in the Ginetta that starts on pole position. He's got the racing experience car of Laurent Prunet for company, and at the tail end of the grid is Klaus Evelyn for Frikella Racing. So that's the way that the grid lines up for this one. the pit window, just to remind you, is set to open up slap bang in the middle of the race. So it opens between the 22nd and the 33rd minute of the race. So in other words, when there's between 33 minutes and 22 minutes to go. So it is literally slap bang in the middle of the race. And then remember, it's not just a 55-minute race. We've got an extra lap to add on once the clock ticks to 0. Next time over the line will be their final lap of the race before they then head away from the Netherlands and back to Germany for the remaining rounds of the championship. 2 further races to come up at Hockenheim. They will take place in the middle part of August, about a month from now, the 9th to the 11th of August. Then it's on to the Nürburgring. Also in August, just a week later, the 16th to the 18th of August. So a busy August for these teams coming up, back-to-back race weekends. And final race weekend is a couple of weekends after that, the early part of September, the 6th, the 7th and the 8th of September. Well, they'll head to the Sachsenring for the final championship round. So they're just heading out of turn 13, up towards turn number 14, and then the safety car will peel its way in towards the pit lane and we'll get the race back underway. So the cars in neat 2x2 order, and the safety car, the BMW safety car, peels its way into the pit lane. 55 minutes are on the clock. The red lights are on the gantry, and watch out for the blue and white car of Keanu Alazari, because he was quick in the early part of yesterday's race, built a good advantage before that safety car period. He wants to build a good advantage today and hope that the safety car stays away. So the lights go out, we're away and racing for the second time this weekend at Circuit Zandvoort, and it's going to be Keanu Alazari that will lead the way up towards the braking area for Tarzan for the first time. Marcus Pommer slots his Duqueine into second position, and Riccardo Leone Ciorelli is there in third place for BWT Mucker Motorsport. Fourth is the Jakob Eilbacher car, by the look of things, at the wheel of the second of the cars that they've brought it here, but coming under pressure from Torsten Kratz actually, at the wheel of the Ligier, who is partnered up with Danny Soufi and looking to try and carve their way through. The problem for Torsten Kratz is he tried it, it didn't work, and instantly he's coming under pressure from Antti Ramo, who's trying to feed his way through. And was there a bit of contact there, or was that just cold tyres? But Torsten Kratz was, I'm sure, doing lots of work there to try and keep the car pointing in the right direction. You could see that the car was not quite compliant with what he wanted it to do, and it very quickly reminded him that the Ligier was going to swap ends if he didn't gather at the moment. But lots of arm twirling got him there, and he manages also to keep Antti Ramo behind in the process. So the two Ligiers still absolutely together. Watch out for Klaus Abelen at the tail end of the field at the wheel of his Ligier in the Fricadelli Racing Team car. That's the number 30 car. The red car with its white flashes and the Dayglow green towards the front of it. And out front, leading the way, Keanu Alazari looking to try and build an advantage if he can. Early stages of this one, long race ahead, pit stop window to come, second batch of drivers to get in. There's lots that can unfold, as ever is the case in the Prototype Cup Germany. So about to chalk the first lap into the book. Keanu Alazari leads the way for Mullner Motorsport. Marcus Pommer, the reigning champion, sitting there in second place. Riccardo Leone Ciorelli is third at the moment for BWT Mucker Motorsport. Everybody's safely through the first lap. Thomas Kratz in the championship leading car. That's the black car with the teal-coloured flashes to it. Number 2 car was prepared by Conrad Motorsport. That's Conrad's team. Still doing a good job of hanging on to 5th place. And we'll be hoping that they don't have to do what they did yesterday, which was charge their way back through from the tail end of the field when Danny Soufi had a moment at just the second, sort of third corner in the race where the car had a spin, and thankfully everybody avoided him, and it was then a case of playing catch-up, and it was a brilliant result in the end to finish in second place in yesterday's race, and actually outscore their main championship rivals, which is the pairing of Marcus Pommer and Giuliano Catalano, who actually finished in 3rd place. So it was a good recovery drive and damage limitation process yesterday from the championship leaders. So the car's just starting to get a few little gaps between them. They're on lap 2 at the moment. The lead advantage was 0.8 of a second after the first lap of the race from Keanu Alazari, who, I say, was out of the blocks really quickly yesterday. He'd built a 13.5 second lead before the safety car dwindled that to nothing. And then, of course, with largely the teams and the drivers, based on those driver pairings, having to spend a differing amount of time in the pit lane, that was what shook the order up and allowed the number 14 car of Antti Ramo, who we're looking at there heading through Arie Bocht, to pick up the lead of the race. And as it was in the end, he won by nearly 25 seconds. It was 24.969 seconds was the lead advantage in the end. So up towards the braking area for Tarzan. Laurent Prunet trying to apply a little bit of pressure to Michael Herrich, who at the wheel of the Sol Ginetta that we've got in the field is still managing to maintain 7th place at the moment from Prunet, who's there in 8th place. Laurent Prunet didn't get to race yesterday because that was the car that retired early on in the race in the hands of Thomas Grandsea, and therefore it's the first chance he's had to, in racing conditions, propel the car around what is a beautifully dry circuit. It's still been a bit breezy here today, but at least it's not that changeable conditions if you joined us yesterday that we had, where, you know, for a few laps the cars didn't have windscreen wipers on, then the next little rain cloud would appear. It never really belted down with rain, but it did mean that cars were having to wipe their windscreens. Now, there was a little bit of fluid coming out the back of one of the cars there, and I think that was Laurent Prunet's car that it was coming out the back of, and that was the problem with that car yesterday. It's one of the overflow pipes that's just gushing a little bit of fluid out of the back of the number 1 car. I'll see when we might be able to get another shot of that one. Just spotted it as he went round the corner, and that was what ground that car to a halt on the circuit yesterday, the number 1 car. So Keanu Alizare leads the way. Marcus Pommer dropping a little bit further back as Keanu Alizare sets the fastest lap of the race so far. Riccardo Chiarelli there next up in 3rd place. Jakob Eilbacher 4th. Torsten Kratz 5th. Antti Ramo followed by Michael Herrich. And then the number 1 car, which is the car I've got a slight concern about. Let's just have a quick look. Here he comes, Laurent Prunet, up towards Tarzan. And have we got, yep, there you go, look, there's fluid coming out the back of it. And that was what happened yesterday when the car ground to a halt on circuit. That overflow pipe was gushing either coolant or something out, but you can see there is something coming out of the car. Now, I'm not saying that is a cause for concern, but when it stopped yesterday, that was visually what you could see. Whether that was actually what stopped the car in the end, I'm not sure. It's not doing it at that point of the circuit, which hopefully is going to prevent that car having any further problems. And again, through the next section, so through Skyflak Masters Bochten turn 9, there's nothing. But it's something I just want to keep my eye on. He's running around in 9th place at the moment. Klaus Abelin completes the... He's running around the 8th place at the moment. Klaus Abelin completes the top 9. As Keanu Alizare leads now by 2 seconds. Fastest lap of the race last time through, 1 minute 33.586. The second flying lap that he's done, but he is absolute best through the first sector on this lap. Absolute best through the second sector. And surely he's going to go even quicker this time through. So, fastest lap of the race this time through, 1 minute 33.292, and that is almost as quick as the fastest lap that he set yesterday. It's 1 minute 33.140 when we had the drying section of the circuit yesterday. Well, early days yet, but that's a perfect lap really. Purple sector 1, purple sector 2, purple sector 3. And now the lead advantage is nearly up to 3 seconds between himself and this car here, the number 70 car in the hands of the reigning champion, Marcus Pommer, who for this season is partnered up with Valentino Catalano, finished 4th in the championship last year. So it's a strong-looking pairing, but they're having to give second best in this race to Keanu Alizare, and they're also having to give second best in the championship to the car that's 5th at the moment in the hands of Torsten Kratz. 3rd is Riccardo Leone Chiarelli at the wheel of the fantastically liveried BWT Mucker Motorsport car, the traditional BWT livery in reality, but always looks good. Always like cars that are pink racing cars. Don't know why, but they just seem to work. Jakob Eilbacher is next up at the wheel of the 2nd of the Gibbert Motorsport cars. The white car with the multicolours to it and the blue vertical rear fin. And he's got the championship leading car sitting right behind him. But they're not quite close enough to each other as yet for 2nd, for 3rd, for 4th places. There's just a few little gaps that are appearing between them. They're all about sort of 3 seconds adrift from each other as they fight over 2nd, 3rd, and this car here, the number 80 car of Jakob Eilbacher, that's 4th at the moment. So over the start-finish line, they will work their way. 5 laps completed. Riccardo Chiarelli goes through. Jakob Eilbacher goes through, followed by Torsten Kratz at the wheel of what is the leading Ligier at the moment. So it was a Ligier 1-2 in the race yesterday. At the moment, the Duquesnes are occupying the top 4 places, the Duquesne chassis. Ligiers are 5th, 6th and 8th, 5th, 6th and 9th. Got another Duquesne there in 8th place, and the Solginetta in the hands of Mikael Herich, 7th currently. So loads of time to go before the pit window opens. It will only open when there are 33 minutes remaining in the race. So another 12-13 minutes plus before we see that pit window open. And as long as we remain green, it'd be interesting to see whether today we have a different dynamic during that pit window, because it is in reality was it 9-minute pit window? And yesterday everybody pitted on exactly the same lap, which was not the lap the safety car came back in, but the next lap after that was when everybody dived for the pit lane at exactly the same time. So they might choose to pit on different laps, and again, depending on the driver pairings. You know, if you've got a quicker driver in for the first part of the race, it would suggest that leave him in for as long as you can and pit at the back end of the window. If you've got the slower driver of the two in at the front end of the race, then you come in at the sharp end as soon as the pit window opens. Of course, for two drivers, Keanu Elazari and Antti Ramo, they go solo in this one, so they can very much choose when they want to pit. Largely, it shouldn't make a great deal of difference to them. So the championship leading Conrad Motorsport car in the hands of Torsten Kratz. That will have an extra 4 seconds to spend in the pit lane as success seconds as a result of finishing second in yesterday's race. So Torsten needs to get on with it here, knowing already that they will be 4 seconds adrift of others around, subject to the driver categorisations that everybody has. And at the moment, he's doing a good job, actually. He is 2.6 seconds adrift of the 4th place car of Jakob Eilbacher. But he's got 4 seconds in hand between himself and Antti Ramo, yesterday's race winner at the moment. There's the Fricadelli car. Klaus Evelyn. He'll hand over to Felipe Fernandez-Laser for part 2 of the race. We saw some good things from Felipe Fernandez-Laser in yesterday's race. Was fighting away, was looking to try and gain a place, and then ran wide at Tarzan, which lost him a couple. And he was always looking as though he was pushing hard at the wheel of that car. So Klaus Evelyn is not a slow driver, but Felipe Fernandez-Laser, based on what we were seeing in the damp conditions yesterday, was either the quicker or the more confident of the two. And at the moment, Klaus Evelyn is now nearly 10 seconds adrift of the next car up the road from him. So losing time in the early stages of this one is the car that's running in 9th place for Fricadelli Racing Team. The lead advantage now nearly 4 3/4 seconds for Keanu Elazari. 7 laps completed, 10 and a bit minutes before the pit window opens. Marcus Pommer, pushing hard, has just set his best lap of the race so far. But even though he's just set the best lap of the race, it was still about 3/10 slower than the number 21 car that we're looking at the moment, which is the race leader, Keanu Elazari. There's different subcategories as well to this one. So we've got the main overall championship, we've got the Prototype Cup Germany trophy, and then we've got the junior categorisation as well, for which there are a lot of junior drivers, a lot of young drivers racing in Prototype Cup Germany this year. So through goes Keanu Elazari. There's the gap relative to Marcus Pommer in 2nd place. You can just see him in the background at the moment. The two Duquesne chassis. Through goes the race leader. Here comes Marcus Pommer, the reigning champion, lying 2nd in the championship standings. Similar gap back to Riccardo Cirelli in the BWT Pink Machine, another Duquesne that sits there in 3rd place. Everything seems to be going to plan for everybody at the moment. Haven't seen any of the signs that Laurent Prunet's car that was just chugging out that little bit of fluid from the back of it. No suggestions as yet that that car is slowing on circuit. It's been very consistent with his lapping. Last lap from Laurent Prunet, 1 minute 37.8. His best lap, 1 minute 37.7. So the car is not slowing up. So maybe it's just a bit of overfill of something. Now, new fastest lap of the race again that time through for Keanu Elazari, 1 minute 33.122, increasing the lead advantage to nearly 5.5 seconds between himself and this car here, the number 70 car in the hands of Marcus Pommer. So it looks as though on pure pace at the moment, Mulder Motorsport have it over the leading car from Gibbert Motorsport. The gap just keeps extending and extending, and doesn't seem to be a great deal that Marcus Pommer can do about it currently. Lovely rumble from these engines as well, all powered by exactly the same engine, all on exactly the same Michelin tyres, which they are limited for the amount of tyres that they can utilise over the course of the weekend, but because a good chunk of the running has been done in wet conditions, they haven't really needed the slicks that they are allocated for the whole weekend. Was it 2 sets of slick tyres to see them through 3 practice, through qualifying and the 2 races, if memory serves me correctly. Oh no, 4 sets of new tyres. 2 front and 2 rear for use in all of the qualifying sessions and practice. So they need to make sure that they push hard on these tyres, because they've got good allocation for this weekend, having used the wets for the rest of them. Riccardo Chiarelli still sitting there in 3rd place at the moment, seeing whether he can try and eat into the gap that lies ahead. That's the car that lies 3rd in the championship standings. It's had a 2nd and a couple of 3rds. It finished down in 6th position yesterday, so its worst result of the season so far. But good to see it back on the podium, which is where it is at the moment, but there's a long way to go yet still. 40 minutes plus the extra lap. 7.5 minutes before anybody can head in towards the pit lane to start what will be a mandatory pit stop in this one. And Chiarelli not really under pressure. He's 8.2 seconds adrift of Marcus Pommer. He's got 5.5 seconds in hand between himself and Jakob Eilbacher, who sits there at the wheel of the Gibbert Motorsport number 80 car at this stage. So the first 15 minutes of the race flown by in reality, and the lap times being set just keep getting quicker and quicker and quicker. Keanu Alizari still leading the race, but not easing his pace. Last time through for the race leader, extending the lead margin to 6.4 seconds, and another new fastest lap of the race, almost into the 1 minute 32s now. 1 minute 33.068 seconds. So Keanu Alizari pushing hard, as he did in the early stages of yesterday. I'm going to say yesterday all came undone with that safety car coming out and bunching everybody back up. Jakob Eilbacher is 4th at the moment, the 2nd of the 3 Gibbert Motorsport cars that we've got in the field. Gibbert Motorsport, who are busy preparing and running lots of prototype cars, both in this and in historic prototype racing as well. Very professional team, and at the moment their cars are 2nd, 4th, and the Ginetta of Michael Herich sits there 7th at this stage. Now is Torsten Kratz closing the gap on Jakob Eilbacher? Let's have a quick look there. Last lap times, no he's not. He was about 0.3 of a second slower, but that shot there, it just looked as though he's edging up towards the coattails of the Ligier. So Torsten Kratz still sitting there in 5th place. Antti Ramo actually would be the car that would be closing in on him, as he's the car that's there in 6th place, but he's disappeared out of that shot. 2 leading Ligiers, Torsten Kratz and Antti Ramo, 5th and 6th respectively. Up towards sky-flackened Masters Bocht, and then in towards turn number 9 before you start to flick left in towards turn number 10, and then you've got, well, it's not really a straight, it's just a long, very shallow left-hander all the way from turn 10 up towards the braking area for Hans Erksbocht, and that's quite a heavy braking area in towards the first aspect of it, which is the right-hander, before you then have the left-hand hairpin, which is Torsten Kratz is just working his way through now. Still sitting there in the championship leading car in 5th place, our race leader in the meantime. Keanu Alizari is just sort of cruising away, isn't he? Last time through from him, he did ease his pace a little bit by about 0.3 of a second, from being in the 1 minute 32s, 1 minute 32.940, which he set a few laps earlier, which is now the fastest lap of the race and the fastest lap we've seen all weekend. He's back in the 1 minute 32s, but the cars behind him are in 1 minute 34s and a half at the moment, even up to 1 minute 35s. So the gap is up to 9 seconds now for the man from the United Arab Emirates. Marcus Pommer, the reigning champion, just does not seem to have anything else that he can throw at it at this stage. So 11 laps completed. Keanu Alizari, 9-second lead. It's a further 9 seconds back from Marcus Pommer in 2nd place to Riccardo Chiarelli, who sits there in 3rd. Jakob Eilbacher is a further 6 seconds back from that. Another 4.5 back from that is Torsten Kratz. Another 5 back from that is Ante Ramo. Then it's 7 seconds back from that for Michael Herich. 6.5 back from that is Laurent Prunet. And then a further 17 back from that is Klaus Abelem. So they're all in differing parts of the circuit at the moment. There's no real squabbles going on. But that doesn't matter, because when they all dive in towards the pit lane, of course, they'll all be largely stopping for different period of times based on the driver pairings and the success seconds from yesterday. And what happened in the second part of yesterday's race, somewhat aided by the safety car, was that we did have that brilliant battle. Second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth were all separated by less than 4 seconds in yesterday's race. So Marcus Pommer in second place, now over 10 seconds adrift. Still the leading Gibbet prepared car that we've got in the field. Turning his way round through turn 3, using all of the banked section of the circuit and trying to almost triangulate it to get back off the corner quickly and carry all of that speed out of Jürgen Holzbocht and over Rob Slotemacher, where they head over the crest and then in towards Skyflak. First of 3 consecutive right-handers. Skyflak short straight up towards Mastersbocht, which is where he's heading now, and then a difficult turn 9, where we've seen, both in the racing yesterday and in qualifying, cars, that unloaded wheel, very easy to lock it up. Remember, there's no traction control, there's no ABS on LMP3 cars, so it's all done by feel and how hard you press the brake pedal and the accelerator on the way out of the corner. So there's work to be done in these cars, but hugely rewarding they are. Bounces over the curbs through Hans Erstbocht. And then after that, the short straight up towards turn number 13, which, as I mentioned yesterday, critical corner really. It's taken very quickly in these cars, not quite flat, but you need to carry speed on the corner at the apex and certainly on the exit of it, because then all of that momentum is carried through the flat out banked section at Harry Leyendijk Bocht, and then you carry that speed all the way over the start finish line, which is where Marcus Pommer is going now. He'll be disappearing up towards Tarzan, and you can see the relative gap now between himself and Riccardo Leone Cirelli, who sits there third in the race. So we've not seen Julian Apotolo behind the wheel of this car as yet. Mucker Motorsport, I'm sure, will be ready to receive it. The Swiss driver will be popping on the crash helmet ready to go, because the opening of the pit window is now less than 60 seconds away. And unlike yesterday, there's no sign as yet of an interruption to that safety car window because of any controlled status in the race, which of course we did have yesterday. Just as we were about to get to the pit window, that was when we had the car falter out on circuit and retire in the hands of what was Thomas Grandseier. So Riccardo Cirelli pushing hard still. Remember, that's the car that's third in the championship standings but hasn't had a win as yet so far this season. Seconds and third places are the podium it's taken. Jakob Eilbacher in the second of the 2 Gibbet Motorsport cars in the background of the shot, which does suggest he might be closing up a little bit. Based on last lap times, no, the gap came out between them all, but they're also all getting ready. There is Felipe Fernandez-Laser in the pit lane. They're ready to jump on board the car that is currently in the hands of Klaus Abelem. That's the car that runs down in 9th position at the moment. We saw some good things from Felipe Fernandez-Laser yesterday. German driver, not very German sounding name, but very quick behind the wheel is Felipe. So over the start finish line, pit window is now open, has just been confirmed by race control. And are we going to see anybody dive in the early stages of this pit window in towards the pit lane? I think we have. I think we've got our first taker. It's not going to be our race leader at the moment, and the first car to come in is Torsten Kratz, heads towards the pit lane. Little blue signal on the left-hand side of the screen tells you that that car has dived for the pit lane. So Danny Sufi, the American driver, the youngster, will jump on board that one. We saw him drive brilliantly well yesterday to work his way back through the order after that spin at this section of the circuit on the opening lap. So work to be done. Ante Ramo heading round the bank section. Laurent Prunet still continuing. Makes you wonder whether they'll leave him until the back end of the pit window, because he didn't get any driving yesterday because of the problems that befell Thomas Grandseier earlier on in the race. So Torsten Kratz the only car for the pit lane as yet, but I think we've got another one that is about to enter the pit lane this time through, and it is Torsten Kratz heads for the pit lane. So Klaus Abelem is in, ready to hand over to Felipe Fernandez Laser. Not the easiest things to get in or out of the LMP3 cars, so a bit of a shuffle to get out. There'll be a change of seat insert going in. Fernandez Laser about to jump on board. We've also had our race leader in as well. Keanu Alizare is in. He did have a 9.5 second lead as he came in towards the pit lane. So not all coming in on exactly the same lap this time as they did on the previous one. And we've also got BWT waving Muka Motorsports sign and therefore hitting the marks. Coming to a stop comes Riccardo Cirelli, and Julian Apotolo will jump on board that car for part 2 of the race. So Stefan Muka is here this weekend at Circuit Zolder. Very quick driver in his own right. Muka Motorsport, hugely professional, but also equally very, very busy team. We've also got in the background of the shot, we've got the Ginetta coming in as well, which is Michael Herich, dives for the pit lane. So all of this means that at the moment, it will be Marcus Pommer out on circuit that leads the way at the moment. Jakob Ilbacher is second. Cars first and second, but haven't pitted. And I think Antti Ramo, yesterday's winner of the race, is third currently. And it was really during the pit stops yesterday that Antti Ramo jumped up through the order. Shorter pit stop from him, effective pit stop from him, no driver change to consider. And that was what saw him come out of the pit stops in the lead of the race, and say in the end built what was as good as a 25-second margin between himself and anybody else. But second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all separated by less than 4 seconds. Into the Gibbet Ginetta goes Sven Bart. Seatbelts being tightened. Team on hand just to make sure that the seatbelts go over the hands device. Leaving the pit lane goes Julian Apotolo at the wheel of the Duqueine prepared by Muka Motorsport. And door closes on one side of the Ginetta. Door shortly will be closed on the other side of the Ginetta. Slave battery plugged in just in case. And we'll wait and see as to what happens. Now, Keanu Alizare, who has pitted, at the moment has got the race leader Marcus Pommer, who hasn't pitted, right behind him, I think that was. But Pommer at some point, if he thinks he's getting held up, might be wise to dive for the pit lane and hand over the number 70 Gibbet car to Valentino Catalano. Out of the pit lane comes the Ginetta. So this is the Ginetta G61 LTP3, car that we've not seen in the championship so far this year. So it wanders back out of the pits, as into the pits we get this time Laurent Prunet comes in. So that's the number 1 racing experience Duqueine that heads in towards the pit lane, which I think now probably means that there's just a couple of cars, 3 cars that haven't pitted at the moment, is it not? So Marcus Pommer hasn't pitted, he leads. Jakob Ilbacher has not pitted, he's second. And Antti Ramo, who's third, the number 14 car, hasn't pitted. Still plenty of time in which to do so, another 6 minutes or so, the pit window being open, so they can still squeeze out at least another 3, if not 4 laps before there's any need to come into the pits. But you cannot pit outside of the window, otherwise the penalties, understandably so, become quite draconian. So you cannot pit before 22 minutes, and you have to pit before 31 minutes 59.999 on the clock. So Marcus Pommer is in this time through. There is Prunet's car just being serviced by the Racing Experience crew. So he's out. Thomas Grandsay will jump in. Back of the shot we can see Marcus Pommer out of the car, and Valentino Catalano about to get in. And there's another lollipop being waved, which suggests that probably Antti Ramo is into the pit lane this time through. Let's just have a quick look. Yep, that's Antti Ramo that's into the pit lane, so he drives solo. No driver change needed to take place there. A quick drink, a quick adjustment to tyre pressures, possible wipe of the windscreen. Waiting for the clock to tick before Thomas Grandsay is away, so you can't break the beam at the end of the pit lane before the minimum time. Otherwise you do pick up time penalty, and in the case of the mandatory pit stop falling short of the minimum required duration of up to 5 seconds, you get a drive-through penalty. If it deviates by more than 5 seconds from the minimum duration, it's a stop-go penalty equivalent to the shortfall below the mandatory pit stop time. including any handicaps that get applied as well. That's the way the regulations are written, so you've got to get it right. Because a drive-through penalty, you've got to decelerate down to the pit lane speed limit, go all the way down the Circuit Zandvoort pit lane at the pit lane speed limit, and then get back out again, which means that you're probably losing something like 20-30 seconds if you just make a few miscalculations. So it's better to err on the side of caution and maybe lose a half a second or a second in the pit lane to make sure you're the right side of the line, because if you're the wrong side of the line, then you really are going to undo a lot of the hard work that's been done in the early stages. So there's only one car, I think, to pit as yet, and that is Jakob Earlbacher, who has come in. So into the pit lane now comes Jakob Earlbacher, so that's the last of the cars to pit. Quick lock of the brakes, he'll be jumping out of the car, and this is the last driver change that we'll see. So Maxim Dierix will jump in, and then next time through we'll have a really good indication as to what the order looks like at this stage. Antti Ramo had a really good advantage yesterday and took up the lead as a result of the pit stops. Now, is he going to be leading as they come through and over the start-finish line this next time through? Because, of course, the timing screen on the left-hand side of your screen shows the positions they were in last time they came over the start-finish line, and, of course, that includes any cars that are in the pit lane. So Jakob Earlbacher still showing at the top of the screens. But, of course, that happened when he entered the pit lane. It was recorded. When he leaves the pit lane, Thomas Grandsea will be on board, and it'll be the next lap through over the start-finish line where we'll get the full shuffle of the order. Brilliant livery on that car as well. The number 80 Duquesne from Gibbert Motorsport, white with all of the splashes of colour, and then the blue stripe down the centre, but the vertical rear wing that heads back towards the back of the car has almost got, I don't know what it is, whether it's a mermaid that's painted on it, something like that. So Keanu Elizare, early race leader yesterday, again taking that really wide line round through turn 3, Hogan Hutzbocht. Starting to build the pace again through the twists and the turns up towards the highest point of the circuit at the top of Rob Slotemacher. And from there, the circuit sort of descends downhill once more towards Skyflak. Then a very slight kink to the left before you're in towards Mastersbocht. And then the more difficult turn 9, a third of the consecutive right-handers before you finally flick left again at turn number 10. Was called CM.com Bocht for a period of time, who were associated with the Circuit Zandvoort, but now just simply turn 10. And then up towards Hans Erstbocht. So all of the driver changes having taken place. Remember, Antti Ramo driving solo at the wheel of the 14 car. Keanu Elizare we're looking at the moment also driving solo, so he's in for the full duration. Well, it's going to be a warm day in these closed cockpit cars. No windows you can open. A little bit of breeze you can get through, no doubt from some ducting somewhere. But with the big windscreen, it's going to feel warm in there. You've got the heat soak coming out of the engine. You'll get the heat soak from the brakes as well. You've got your crash helmet on, your balaclava on. You've got fireproof undergarments, probably a 3-layer Nomex suit. So it's not the best of working environments, but at the moment, Keanu Elizare is doing the best of it, because even after the pit stops, he still continues to lead the race. So he's been in, he's been serviced, and unlike yesterday when he lost the lead because of the pit stops happening just as the safety car came out, he continues to lead. Valentino Catalano is there in second place, having taken over the car that was vacated by the champion from last year, Marcus Pommer. Third at the moment is going to be the BWT car that was in the hands of Riccardo Leone Cirelli, and now has Julian Apotolo behind the wheel. And Danny Sufi could be one to watch out for in this one, because he's not long jumped on board the number 2 car from Conrad Motorsport of Torsten Kratz. And he is already starting to make a little bit of progress and has pretty much set the best lap that that car has done so far, 1 minute 34.204. One car that lost a load of time in the pit lane was Jakob Earlbacher, giving way to Maxim Dierix. That car started 4th on the grid, and I think he's going to be down to something like 6th place as it comes over the start-finish line this time through. But what's more worrying for them is that not only have they lost places, but also the pit stop is under investigation by the officials at the moment. Don't know any more than that, but Maxim Dierix will be hoping that all is good with that pit stop. I think we had that yesterday, didn't we? A couple of cars, pit stops were under investigation. They were subsequently, those investigations were closed. There was no transgression of the regulations. So that's what the officials will be looking at the moment. Double checking the data, fully understanding what may or may not have happened, and then from there decisions will be taken. Just to confirm, pit window's closed, matters not, everybody has pitted. Danny Sufi is the one I would say we need to watch in part 2 of the race. He is about 6 seconds adrift of the final spot on the podium at the moment, which is Julian Apostolo. Julian Apostolo equally as much is just 1.5 seconds adrift of Valentino Catalano, and was the best part of 9/10 of a second quicker than him last time through. So the gap second to third closing up, the gap third to fourth closing up, and it does look as though they at the moment may well form a battle before too much longer. Yesterday's race winner at the moment, Antti Ramo for MRS GT Racing, down in 5th position. It's the second of the Ligiers we've got in the field. The leading Ligier continues to be the number 2 car from Conrad Motorsport, now in the hands of Danny Sufi. So we're past the halfway point of this race, just under 21 minutes to go, plus the extra lap still that we need to deal with. Antti Ramo finds himself in 5th position and slightly in no man's land at the moment, because he's nearly 11 seconds adrift of the car ahead of him, which will be Danny Sufi. He's about 6 seconds up the road from Maxim Dierix at the wheel of the number 80 car, which is going to be just heading in towards shot now. Here is Maxim Dierix bouncing over the curbs, pushing hard for Gibbert Motorsport. Sister car from Gibbert Motorsport, but the Ginetta is behind in the hands of Sven Barth. Car which makes its debut in the championship this weekend, but one of the quickest cars out there at the moment. And I did say we saw good things from him yesterday. It's the number 30 car in the hands of Felipe Leza, who last time through did a 1 minute 33.3, which is the fastest car the lap has done. It's the fastest car, fastest lap that anybody did on that lap, and therefore it's faster than the race leader, who was 1/10 of a second slower, Keanu Elazari. So Felipe Leza looking to try and make up for any ground that was lost in the number 30 car in the early stages of this one. That car qualified by Klaus Abelem at the back of the grid for Frikidelli Racing, and now has really come alive that Felipe Fernandez Leza is on board. Now I said the gaps were closing up, they certainly are. The number 70 car, which is the red and black car in the hands of Valentino Catalano, is getting caught by the BWT machine in the hands of Julian Apostolo. It's still a Duquesne 1-2-3 at the moment, but the pink car's closing in and is, I think before too much longer, going to start to make a challenge. So that's the one we need to try and keep an eye on. There it is, actually. So Valentino Catalano has been fully caught already by Julian Apostolo. It was exactly 1.25 seconds as they came over the start-finish line, but it's not going to be that anymore, because Apostolo is 0.2 of a second quicker through the first sector. He's 0.4 of a second quicker through the second sector, so he's halved the gap already, and we're only 2/3 of the way around the lap, and he's going to be within prime distance to pick up at least some of the tow from Valentino Catalano this time through. Remember, this is the car that's second on the road and second in the championship, under pressure from the car that's third on the road and third in the championship, with the championship leading car in 4th at the moment in the hands of Danny Sufi. So through they'll come, 18 minutes to go, onto the brakes, up towards Tarzan. Valentino Catalano still hanging on to second place, 27 seconds adrift now of Keanu Elazari, who still continues to dominate this race. Case of what can have been for him yesterday, when all of that advantage built up diminished under safety car, and I suppose a bit like we saw yesterday from Antti Ramo, who hadn't had a podium and claimed a win. Well, if Keanu Elazari can stay where he has, well, or is at the moment, it's the same for him. Hasn't had a podium as yet this season and could be on for a win. He ultimately finished, what, 5th in yesterday's race. The fight is certainly on for the other 2 podium spots at the moment, and this is good news also for Keanu Elazari, because if they squabble for second and third, they're going to slow each other up, and he's just going to keep away, romping into the distance. At the moment, he's about 2 seconds a lap quicker, as Julian Apostolo has a really good look at the inside of Valentino Catalano. There were lock brakes there from the BWT machine, the Mucca Motorsport car, but thankfully contact was avoided. Julian Apostolo in the pink machine will have another opportunity to try and squeeze his way through somewhere. He's not going to be close enough when they head up towards Hans-Erstbock this time through. So again, concentrate on the exit of turn 13, carry that speed through Ari Leyendijk Bocht, and see if you can queue up a move as you head down the start-finish straight and in towards the braking area for Tarzan. So through the right-hander, speeds begin to build again once more. He is edging ever closer to Valentino Catalano. Is he going to try anything in the braking area for Tarzan? I'm not sure he's quite going to get there. No, he's not going to be close enough this time through. So again, just have to wait for the opportunity to see whether he can prise the door open somewhere. He had a look last time, didn't he, heading in towards turn number 10. Well, they're not quite there yet. They're only at turn number 3 on the circuit. Again, that nice wide line taken up through turn 3. Build the speeds again over Rob Slotemakervocht. And again, Skyflak doesn't really offer up an overtaking opportunity unless the car ahead makes some sort of mistake. So onto the brakes through Skyflak up towards Masters blocked, and then turn number 9 before they then flick left at turn number 10. And Julian Apostolo again taking a slightly tighter line into that one. Tighter line in though is probably going to compromise the exit. He's certainly not going to get an overlap on the way out. And Valentino Catalano for the moment still hangs on to second place, and all of this squabbling is just allowing the championship leading car of Danny Soufi to begin to close in. He's about half a second quicker than the pair ahead, and that would mean then we'd have 3 cars battling for 2 podium spots, and those 3 cars would all be the top 3 in the championship. So out of turn number 13, 24 laps about to be completed for these two. Nearly 30 seconds up the road now is Keanu Elazari. Still a Duquesne 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Danny Soufi in the lead. Ligier was in the background of the shot last time through. He's going to be ever more in the background of the shot and starting to loom larger in our cameras before too much longer. He's still got a lot of work to do though. He's 4.3 seconds adrift, but was nearly 7/10 of a second quicker than these two last time through. So he's edging closer. Fastest lap of the race at the moment is still in the hands of Keanu Elazari, the only driver to dip into the 1 minute 32 second bracket. Danny Soufi, he'll be hearing on the team radio, keep pushing, push, push, push. You are closing in on the cars ahead. Just keep doing what you're doing, and he will get there. There's plenty of time which to do so. We've still got just under 15 minutes of the race to go, plus the additional lap thereafter. And we did have back into the pit lane Maxime Dierix, I think, who was just shown as being back on an outlap briefly. He's also lost a place now than a Brady car to Felipe Fernandez-Laser, who's gone through at the wheel of number 30 Ginetta for Fricadelli Racing. So I do wonder, that was the car, was it not, that was under investigation for its pit stop, if memory serves me correctly. So I think that clearly it must have been in for a drive-through or a stop-go penalty, and that's why that car has now tumbled down through the order, having qualified 4th and was running, yeah, what, 4th, 5th in the early stages of the race. Now Valentino Catalano here, that's the red car from Gibbert Motorsport, the car that was started by Marcus Pommer, seems to have just for the moment palmed away the aspirations of Julian Apostolo, who's dropped a little bit further back. Lap times confirmed that. He was about a quarter of a second slower that time through. So maybe Valentino Catalano has found a little bit more in the locker, or possibly Julian Apostolo had been so close for a few laps that he's just easing things off again, just to try and bring the tyre temperatures down on the controlled Michelin tyre that they all run, and also get himself out of the dirty air a little bit. Try and focus his efforts for another few laps of push, possibly, but just relax for a couple. But I think without question, even on this lap, through the first sector, 10.5 of a second quicker is Valentino Catalano, so the gap comes out to probably about 8/9 of a second as it is at the moment. What's it going to look like through the middle sector of the lap? Because again, I think Julian Apostolo was probably closed in and might have had a stronger middle part of this lap, because the gap seems to have diminished again all of a sudden. Danny Soufi is still closing in on the pair ahead as well at the wheel of the lead Ligier. It's 4 seconds adrift, but closing in. So they go through the middle sector of the lap, yeah, and Julian Apostolo is closing up again, so he's 0.3 of a second quicker than the car ahead, but he's still 0.2 of a second quicker than Danny Soufi, and I'm afraid off, and that is going to be Thomas Grandseye. That's the car that had the problem yesterday and retired when it was in the hands of Thomas Grandseye, but it was a mechanical issue on that occasion. Looks as though it's a spin on this occasion. And with the car stranded in the gravel and the wheels spinning, can they deal with that under localised yellow flags? Is there enough of a gap in the traffic for the marshals to get out there and give him a shove? And even if they do, can they get it out of the gravel? And if they can't, I fear I know what's going to happen, which is potentially safety car, which is going to undo a lot of the hard work and will undo all of the 32-second lead that Keanu Elazari has over these two cars that are still busy squabbling. Valentino Catalano and Giuliano Potolo. 11.5 minutes to go. Not quite sure exactly where the number 1 car of Thomas Grandseye went off. That's Tarzan, isn't it? That's first corner. So you can see tyre tracks there where he's potentially spun the car into the gravel. And that car being stranded there is not in the safest of places. And therefore we are going to go safety car, I believe. So timing screen here at the circuit. Yep. And confirmation that the marshal's post now displaying the SC boards, and that is not what Keanu Elazari wanted. The safety car period yesterday probably prevented him from getting the race, and we're going to get a replay of what happened. Let's just have a quick look. Thomas Grandseye, all on his own, loses the tail end of the car. It slides one way, it slides the other, and before he can get it back under his spell, rear wheels in the gravel. It's all well and good having the steering wheels on the grass, but if the rear wheels, the driving wheels, are in the gravel, and in such a low-slung car, you're always going to be in trouble, I'm afraid. No damage to the car. Should get pulled out of the gravel trap and may well be able to continue, but that certainly means it's been a difficult weekend for Racing Experience, who have very much experienced the lows of motorsport this weekend with retirement for the car yesterday with mechanical gremlins before Laurent Prunet could get on board. At least Laurent got some racing in this time because he started the car, but Thomas Grandseye, no luck again, I'm afraid. Now, this is good news also for Danny Soufi, isn't it? The championship leading car, because he was closing in on Giuliano Potolo and Valentino Catalano in 3rd and 2nd places respectively, and is now fully up with them under safety car conditions, so he can properly roll his sleeves up and see what he can do with the Ligier in the remaining 10 minutes plus 1 lap of this one. Keanu Elazari, it is exactly not what he wanted to see. So he was 13.5 seconds in the lead yesterday before the safety car came out and bunched them all up, and ultimately lost the lead in the pit stops and finished 5th. Well, he's 32 seconds up the road here, and that is desperately unfortunate for him. I'm sure he would have been hoping that we stayed green all of the way. It's also not a bad opportunity for Felipe Fernandez-Laser to make some further progress at the wheel of the Fricadelli racing car. He's behind the Ginetta of Sven Bart at the moment. But with the safety car out there, we should get the pack fully formed before we get the race back underway. The one good thing is that Thomas Grandsaye's car is undamaged, and therefore it can be towed back out of the gravel trap by our fantastic circuit marshals here at Circuit Zandvoort, and then make its way back into the paddock area, and hopefully may possibly be allowed by the race director to rejoin the race. So we haven't got the train fully formed yet, have we, behind the safety car? We're still playing catch-up at the moment, or Maxim Dierich certainly is. So safety car is just going through Hans Erschbocht. Maxim Dierich should appear in the background of the shot in a few seconds' time, and that would mean that we would have all of the cars that are still circulating fully formed, but the lights still remain on the safety car, so the possibility of one further lap to take place, because the safety car is now up at turn number 13, which is the penultimate corner, and usually it'd be before now when the safety car lights would go off. So if we're heading through Arie Luyendyk Bocht, then we're going to have one further lap behind the safety car. Arie Luyendyk, a driver I always massively associated with IndyCar and Champ Car. He had a very good career both in Europe and over on the other side of the pond as well, the other side of the Atlantic, Arie Luyendyk, and was hugely successful in Champ Car, IndyCar, whatever you wish to call it, or whatever it was called at the time, because it's bounced around, hasn't it? Including many, many appearances at the Indy 500 at the Brickyard. Final corner named after him. So the order at the moment then, Keanu Elazari leading the way from Valentino Catalano, Giuliano Potolo sitting there 3rd, Danny Soufi, the championship leader, in 4th, Antti Ramo, yesterday's race winner, in 5th, Sven Barth in the Ginetta sitting there in 6th place, Felipe Laser, or Felipe Fernandez-Laser to give him his full title, there in 7th place, but he is quick. We know that yesterday when he was right up there fighting in the podium places until his mistake. Maxim Dierich is there in 8th position, and the whereabouts of Thomas Grandseye we'll have to wait and see, because we know his car was what brought about the safety car. He was on the end of a tow rope last time we saw him. We'll wait and see as to whether that car reappears in the remaining 7 minutes plus the extra lap of this race. But the one thing it has done is give us a grandstand finish, because we know that some of the quicker cars aren't at the front at this stage, and certainly for Danny Soufi, he was the quickest car before the safety car came out and was running at a similar pace to Felipe Fernandez-Laser, who is 7th on the restart for this one. So it'll be really interesting to see as to what they might have up their sleeve, and the critical thing will be to get a good restart for Keanu Al-Azari, who seems to have had race pace. He's had really good race pace, didn't qualify as well as he would have wished. Has had really good race pace, didn't qualify and raced as well yesterday. So he qualified on pole but finished in 5th place. But yeah, he's had good qualifying pace, and it's all down to safety cars that have really undone both of his races. So he will want to get a good restart this time through. So he's slowing the pace, he's letting the BMW safety car accelerate away. And let's see as to whether he can hold off, without question, the charge that's going to come from the Gibbert car, number 70, of Valentino Catalano, that sits behind the pink ADAC Motorsport BWT liveried car of Julian Apostolo. So opting to go nice and early is Keanu Al-Azari. Looks as though it's a good restart from him, and he's already managed to gap Valentino Catalano, who is possibly going to feel the pinch a little bit from Julian Apostolo, who should be in the slipstream as they come over the start-finish line this time through. Keep your eye towards Danny Soufi in the background. Already Felipe Fernandez-Laser making a move in the background. He's drawing himself alongside the Ginetta in the hands of Sven Bart. Are we going to have a change for second as well? Julian Apostolo can't quite prise the door open on Valentino Catalano. Danny Soufi with the best seat in the house in the black car with the teal colours, sitting there in 4th position, the championship leading car from Conrad Motorsport, Franz Conrad team that also leads the overall teams championship. And this is perfect news now for Keanu Al-Azari, that they're all squabbling away for 2nd, for 3rd and for 4th places. We've also got Felipe Fernandez-Laser making further improvements as well in the background. He's gained another place. He's now up into 5th position, having, I think, restarted in 7th. So it's been a brilliant restart from him. I did say watch out for him. I thought he would make progress, but he is making very, very quick progress, and is now edging up to make it 4 cars fighting over just 2 podium places. And all of this is perfect news for Keanu Al-Azari, who at the wheel of his Duquesne is just charging off into the distance. So brilliant stuff from him. Out of the next corner, down the short straight up towards, I think Hans-Erksbocht will be the next corner that they're coming up to. Valentino Catalano still there in 2nd position. Or is he? Because trying right the way around the outside goes Julian Apostolo, and he's going to be pushed wide, is he, on the exit of the corner. But if he has the inside line for turn 13, he might be able to squeeze his way through. The door is just about open, and if it's open for 1, Danny Soufi will be hoping they'll be open for 2. And it looks as though Valentino Catalano is trying to fight back on the exit of the corner, but the door is open. On the low side goes Julian Apostolo through into 2nd place, and now Danny Soufi is trying to gain 2nd place with 3 wide, heading up towards Tarzan. And what's going to happen here? Onto the brakes, Julian Apostolo's in 2nd place. Danny Soufi is there in 3rd place. Valentino Catalano trails the outside at Tarzan to try and get the inside line for the next corner and hang on to it, because then when they head up towards turn 3 he'll have the inside line, but he can't make it stick. He's gone from 2nd down to 3rd, down to 4th, and it might not end there, because Felipe Fernandez-Laser is right behind him as well, looking to try and see if he can make a move and push his car further up through the order, having finished in yesterday's results down in 8th position after his problems when he had that off whilst trying to pick up a podium spot on the occasion yesterday in the race. He was running in 3rd place, ended up 5th, and then lost further time when Klaus Abelen took over in the latter part of the race. So 3 minutes to go plus the extra lap. Keanu Al-Azari leading by 4 seconds, and there's a little bit of contact there, I think, as Felipe Laser dived up the inside of Valentino Catalano, and I think the 2 LMP3 cars just brushed off each other very, very briefly. They both got away with it. Catalano loses a place, and now is going to feel even more pressure, because he's got right behind him Antti Ramo, yesterday's race winner, at the wheel of the largely black and white number 14 car, but he's coming under pressure from the Ginetta in the hands of Sven Bart. And then right behind them is going to be Maxim Dierix as well, at the wheel of the number 80 car from Gibbert Motorsport. So it's all happening in the closing stages of this one, all brought about because of that safety car period and the off for the number 1 car in the hands of Thomas Grandseye. But perfect news for Keanu Al-Azari. All of that squabbling has allowed him in just a couple of laps to build almost a 5-second advantage. 4 3/4 seconds is the gap that he enjoys. Remember, he's not had a podium so far this year. He could be on for a win. And what happened in yesterday's race? Well, Antti Ramos hadn't had a podium, and he claimed the win. So it really is going to be a very different weekend to we had at the Lausitzring. It's really going to be, I think, an open championship when they head towards Hockenheim, the Nürburgring and Sachsenring for the final 3 race weekends of the 2024 championship season in the Prototype Cup Germany. Now that we've got, by the look of things, Antti Ramo starting to close in on Valentino Catalano, who, remember, was running second place, wasn't he, and is now down in 5th place. He certainly won't want to lose a further position. Have we got Julian Apostolo closing in on the race leader? Based on last lap times, no, not at all. Have we got Danny Sufi in 3rd place closing in on Julian Apostolano? No, we haven't. But what we have got is the turn 11 incident between Julian Apostolo and number 70, Valentino Catalano. That little bit of contact that I spoke about, that is being investigated at the moment. So that will be looked at by the officials. And if needs be, penalties potentially could be issued. They may just deem it as a racing incident. It was close, there was no malice in it, that was absolutely for sure. Was advantage gained? Well, that's not up for me to decide. But we are now only a matter of seconds away from the clock ticking down to 0. So onto the penultimate lap they will go next time through. In fact, no, penultimate lap this time through, I should say. So next time through the clock will be at 0. And then they've got one more lap to do. Antti Ramo, yesterday's race winner, is in 6th place at the moment. And I don't think he's going to make any further progress because he'll be more focused on keeping that Momo Gibbert Ginetta behind him in the hands of Sven Bart. Sven Bart has got his teammate Maxim Dierix next up. But Danny Sufi is now, by the look of things, looking to try and hang on to the place desperately, that being 3rd, because he's got Felipe Fernandez-Laser right behind him. We saw a charging drive from Felipe yesterday, which didn't net them a great deal at the wheel of the Fricadelli racing car, thanks to the problems that generally befell them throughout the race and the small off. And you can see there, Felipe Fernandez-Laser up the inside of Danny Sufi. There was lock brakes, I think there was slight contact again there, but it does mean that Felipe Fernandez-Laser has gone through and has picked up the final podium spot from the championship leading car of Danny Sufi. Now that was close. It certainly looked as though there might have been a light touch between the two of them. Either that or the reason that Danny Sufi got sideways because he was trying to get on the accelerator so much. But Felipe Fernandez-Laser has been impressive so far this weekend, whether it be in the damp conditions yesterday when he started the car or whether it be in the perfectly dry conditions today. But Fricadelli Racing hoping for good things here. 4th in the championship standings, Felipe Laser and Klaus Abelem. And you know what? They've not had a podium so far this year either. They've had 4ths, they've had 5ths, they've had 6th, they had an 8th yesterday, which was their worst result of the season. But in stark contrast of yesterday with their worst result, they could be on for their best result of the season. They sit there in 3rd place. And for Felipe Fernandez-Laser, he hasn't got a great deal of time to catch the next car ahead, which will be the car in the hands of Julian Apostolo for BWT Mucker Motorsport, because they are now on their last lap of the race. The clock has ticked to 0. And it looks as though in what is going to be round 7 of the championship, after the 2 aborted races at Spa that didn't happen, we then had 3 races at Lausitzring. Yesterday's race round 6, round 7 here today. It looks as though we are going to have 2 different race winners, and it also means we are going to have, out of the 5 races that have taken place, 4 different race winners, which bodes well, doesn't it, for the remainder of the 2024 championship season. Keanu Alazari on course for his first podium and his first win of the season. He's about to turn his way up towards Hans Erstbocht, which is just before the penultimate corner, so flicks his way through the right-hander, then through the left-hand hairpin, and then up towards turn number 13, the penultimate corner, and it's pretty easy in there. Just get a good exit out the corner, and then you're flat on the throttle all the way towards the checkered flag. And in the case of Antti Ramo, it was a first podium and a first win of the season yesterday. In the case of Keanu Alazari, it's going to be a first podium and a first win for him here today. 2 different winners here, and 4 different winners out of the 5 races that have taken place so far this season. Julian Apostolo comes through to finish in 2nd place, but that car will be given a 5-second time penalty for gaining position on track as a result of that small amount of contact, so that could well promote Felipe Fernandez-Laser up into 2nd position by the time the results are issued. But he also may be looked at as well for how he gained that position over Danny Sufi. But as they cross the line, unofficial results: Keanu Alazari claiming the win from Julian Apostolo, Felipe Laser there in 3rd place, Danny Sufi in 4th, and Valentino Catalano in 5th, with Antti Ramo completing the top 6. But remember, those were just the drivers that completed the race. I'll give you the full driver pairings and the teams that they represent when the cars come through over the start-finish line. Everybody's taken the checkered flag, and then we could bring in the results. And I think we are sticking with the footage as well to bring you the podium for this one as well, which I'm hoping is just the top 3 overall, albeit there are the separate subcategories for the Prototype Cup Germany Trophy eligible drivers and the Prototype Cup Germany Junior eligible drivers. And of course we've got that separate teams championship as well, which was being led coming into this weekend on 70 points, Conrad Motorsport from Gibbard Motorsport, 70 and 61 respectively. So let's confirm the results for you then of the second of the 2 races here at Circuit Zandvoort. Chiano Alazari for Mulder Motorsport driving solo claims the win, and in second place it's the pairing of Riccardo Leone Cirelli and Julian Apotolo for BWT Mucker Motorsport. Third place is number 30, Klaus Abelen, who started, and Felipe Laser, with Danny Sufi and Torsten Gratz finishing in 4th place for Conrad Motorsport. 5th place goes the way of number 70, which is Marcus Pommer, who started, and Valentino Catalano, with Antti Ramo driving solo in 6th place. And 7th place was the Ginetta pairing, number 90 of Michael Herrich and Sven Bart. 8th place was the number 80 car of Jakob Erlbacher and Maxim Dierix. And 9th didn't finish the race, but that unfortunately was the car that retired yesterday, Laurent Prunet and Thomas Grandseier for Racing Experience. 9 laps off the end, we didn't see that car reappear at all in the end. So 2 different race winners out of the 2 different races. Add that to the 2 different winners out of the 3 races that we had at Sachsenring, and that means 5 races in, 4 different winners. So Prototype Cup Germany done and dusted, at least for the track activity here at Circuit Zandvoort. But let's have a quick look back at some of the highlights. When the lights went out, Chiano Alazari had a brilliant start and was able to fend off the aspirations of Marcus Pommer, who started on the outside of the front row of the grid. Riccardo Leone Cirelli slotted himself through into 3rd place, but was under pressure in the early stages from Jakob Erlbacher, who couldn't quite make it round the outside at Tarzan to pick up what would have been position. There was a spin late on in the race and into the gravel trap for Thomas Grandseier. That brought about the safety car, and of course that also meant that Chiano Alazari lost what was the best part of a 32-second lead. And for Thomas Grandseier, it was retirement with mechanical gremlins yesterday. It was all of his own making today with that off into the gravel. So that bunched the pack up. It meant that we were in for a grandstand finish for this one, with some of the quicker cars still further down through the pack as a result of all the different pit stop times that they encounter. Chiano Alazari got a good restart. Valentino Catalano found himself under pressure from the car of Julian Apotolo, and all the time closing was the championship leading blue car with its black flashes of Danny Sufi. There was a little bit of contact between Julian Apotolo and the car of Catalano as they worked for position, still trying to hang on to the position, but the door was open. Julian Apotolo was able to squeeze his way through, coming through and out of Ari Lyondijk box. That opened the door for Danny Sufi to squeeze his way through, and Felipe Laser wanted to buy into the fun as well as they went 3 wide up towards Tarzan, but it was not to be. Chiano Alazari, having lost out a win, you could argue, yesterday because of a safety car, he looked as though he might lose out on a win today because of a safety car, but as it was, in the end he came through to claim his first podium of the year, his first win of the year, and won by 6.6 seconds. So that's the highlights of the Prototype Cup Germany. We will await the drivers to head in the general direction of the podium. Might just take them 2 or 3 minutes to get there. And then once they have all made their way to the podium, I think we'll bring you that action. In fact, no, we're not going to head towards the podium. We will close our coverage here of the Prototype Cup Germany from Zandvoort. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, it's goodbye.